So, Kandi, today I'm excited to have you on because, as I've written in my book, you and I both were raised in the FLDS, or the religion that was run notoriously by Warren Jeffs, and I always find these stories very interesting and engaging because I think there's a lot of resilience that has to be in place in order to come through something like that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I know for me, when I was younger, when I left the church, I kind of just wanted to brush it under the rug and that happened, not really understanding the weight of it all. And now we see with Netflix and all these things, like there's tons of stories about it. And that shows to me that there's it was a lot more serious than I understood as a child.
Yeah.
And so, I want to hear your story ultimately. Now, I grew up in Salt Lake City and you were down in Colorado City, right? When you started growing up. So tell us just a little bit about, the setting in which you grew up in, what your family was like and stuff, and we'll kind of move through your story that way.
So I'm the second to the oldest, of a large family, but I didn't grow up with another mom. So it's just a single mom setting until later after I was married. Then my dad got another wife. But there was a lot of kids. So
how many?
My mom has 18.
Oh.
So I have an older sister, and then me, and then my mom had 10 boys in a row.
So your mother had 18 children.
Yes.
Wow. That's incredible. I always brag my mom had 9.
That's still a
double.
Lot.
It is. It absolutely is. I'm good with 1 at the moment.
Right.
My mom. Yeah. So your mom had 18. Wow. And that's interesting. I find the dynamic of that when you're in a polygamous religion and your father only has 1 wife, right? Like there's a little bit of stigma in the community about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about that a little bit.
I never knew any different really growing up. And it was, I don't know, it was fine with me that I only had 1 mom.
Yeah. Probably a little bit less drama in the house.
Yeah. And especially, after I got married and had sister wives, and I began to realize it's not just a piece of cake,
Yeah.
So I didn't know anything different. I feel like our family was middle class in the community.
Okay.
So even though people don't say there's lower class, mid class, and high class, there definitely is.
Oh yeah.
So I don't.
Why was that? Did your dad have a big construction company or what?
No, he was a school teacher for years.
Okay.
But before that, he did concrete. So that's kind of what he did a lot of the time, which is concrete and built metal buildings. And then when his sons got a little older, then of course they'd go to work with him.
Oh yeah.
I and my older sister would beg him if we could go help him.
Okay.
So sometimes a couple of the boys just younger than me would stay home and do the dishes and tend the kids with mom, and Arlie and I would go and help him tear off forms with concrete, and it was really fun working with him.
Yeah, that's interesting. That community there's a lot of work going on all the time, right?
Yep.
There's not a lot of leisure time that's happening. And what I find interesting is I also myself as a young child, when I was 10, 12, I wanted to go out and work because I don't know if it was because, you're just kind of cooped up in the house or what, I don't know. These days there's the iPads and this and that and all that stuff. But it was almost like a treat to go and work.
Yeah.
Is that how it was
exactly.
for you?
Yeah. I mean, and you can only imagine there's just a ton of boys and I'm one of the older ones and I'm just like, get me out of here.
So what was it like growing up in Colorado City for you? Like, I know a bunch of people did different things from an education perspective and all stuff like that. What was it like for you?
So I went to public school till 2nd grade, so for only a couple of years.
And public being
being there in the community, they
Yeah,
had,
the Colorado City, Hilldale, Utah, they had it was publicly funded,
yes,
but it was majority, almost all was
exactly. It was
the FLDS.
all,
Yeah. Okay.
was the FLDS
Right.
or the neighboring community, the Centennial group.
Yeah. But all polygamy
Yep.
understood. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So
So-
you went to that till your second grade.
Yeah. And then Dad decided he didn't want his daughters in school.
Okay.
Super protective. I'm not 100% sure why.
You still haven't figured that one out as to why?
We've approached it with him before, and he's just like, you're all the better for the struggle. And I don't agree, but
Okay. So
Yeah.
after second grade, pulled out.
came home. My mom did homeschool with my sister and I. But that's very limited because she's a single mom. To having that many kids, she's always pregnant and nursing.
Right.
So her trying to teach school. The boys went to school, but my older sister and I did homeschool. So it was limited
Yeah.
in what the learning was there at home. So that's what a lot of my time was spent, was doing some homeschool, just tons of cleaning the house, laundry. You know, you can only imagine
Yeah.
with that many.
All those kids.
Yeah. My sister and I rode horses a lot, and it was really fun having a horse there in the creek because it's the backside of Zion's.
Right.
You know, there's so many mountains, creek beds. There's just hundreds of places to go.
Yeah, it's beautiful country. I mean,
Yeah.
I think
So,
growing up around it, you kind of take it for granted,
oh, you do.
but you realize that so many
do.
people come from all over the world to see that area. Yeah, and so for those of you listening, if you don't know, that Hilldale, Colorado City, where the FLDS community is, it's just in southern Utah, and it's just right, like you said, on the backside of Zion, and so really beautiful country. Yeah,
It is.
tons of stuff to do down there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I go down there now and I can enjoy some of the beauty, but forever, you know, you go down there and you just have too much PTSD
Yeah,
and you just want to get out of there. But now I can spend a few days and be okay.
yeah. So kind of working through your, so you really, I mean, you're spending a large majority of your childhood, adolescence, teen years, basically at home, you know, doing some
Yes.
schooling when possible, but then mostly just laundry, cleaning, cooking,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
taking care of the home.
Yeah.
And, you know, as you progress along there, I mean, what were some of the major key moments? And in my mind, I know one coming, but, you know, I think the big one on people's minds, right, is a lot of these young women get married.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it is an arranged marriage. So the prophet basically keeps track of everyone, men and women, and, more or less decides when they're going to get married. And for a lot of people, they don't even know who they're marrying the day of.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about that.
So it was exactly that.
Okay.
So, when I turned 16, then my sister and I went to Rule and Jeff's home there in Hilldale and so-called turned ourselves in. So, you know, Dad took us there. So we meet with Warren Jeffs first, and Dad's like, yeah, I'm turning these girls in, you know. My older sister is about a year and a half older than me.
Okay. So she was
Yeah.
18 or close to.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, you don't realize how awkward and weird and ridiculous that is till later because everybody's doing it.
Right. Yeah. It was almost like a, kind of a badge of honor. Right?
Oh, yeah, that's how I felt.
Yeah. So
You
at the
know.
time you were not fighting it.
Oh,
You're like,
absolutely not.
Here we go. I'm
No.
part of this.
No.
I'm dedicated to this life. So maybe some excitement.
Yeah, some excitement and something different. I mean, I don't want to say I didn't have a good childhood because I did, but there's a lot going on because I was one of the oldest and there was just tons of kids.
Yeah.
So
you got forced into adulthood pretty early.
Yeah. Well, not as, I was kind of, my older sister and then my brother, just younger than me, actually had more responsibility than I did.
Okay.
So, I would say, yeah, I kind of got forced into adulthood sooner, but I feel like the one just older and younger than me, more so.
More so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say by society standards,
Oh, yeah.
we all got forced into it a little bit young. I was working full-time construction, you know, at 14 years old. Same thing, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just, but again, I thought it was cool, right?
Yeah,
It was, this is awesome.
I agree.
Here I am being child trafficked around. No big deal.
I know it was normal, but
Yeah.
but yeah, we went and got turned in to Warren, and then he took us into Roland's. Roland was sitting in his dining room there at his house with his wives. Like there was tables and tables and tables of just his wives, you know. And he took us through the door, and I was kind of anxious to get married. So when I told Warren I was 16, I said 16 and a half.
Okay.
And Warren thought that was pretty funny.
Trying to push yourself up the ladder a little bit.
Yeah. So when we went in and saw Roland, then he said that in front of everybody, like, yeah, she's 16 and a half. You know, just rubbing it in.
What do you think, talk to me about your psyche at that time.
Okay.
Like, what was it that you wanted wanted some change, or you wanted to like grow up, or like, what was it in your mind that was like, I want to get married?
You know, I think it was just, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so that's what you do.
Yeah.
You know, there wasn't a ton of just really thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was just going along with with what everyone else was doing.
And I think, you know, at that age, a kid should be thinking about college or, I mean, finishing their GED or whatever. But none of that was ever talked about or thought about. You're basically just your mindset, and you're controlled. You're thinking what they want you to think. Mm-hmm. You're indoctrinated in what they want you to be. So there wasn't a lot of thought about it.
Wasn't odd or normal. It was normal. And I understand that because I did an episode last week or 2 weeks ago about how that indoctrination is so hard to eliminate. Mm-hmm. That even 20 years after, right, there's still lingering things that are there. And just like you say, in your mind at that time, there was nothing odd about it. You were just doing and you were almost in some way looking forward to it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I remember those times very well where it's like, oh, so-and-so's getting married and everybody's excited about it. And it was cool and it was awesome. Right. It was an exciting time. It wasn't a thing of doom or gloom or anything like that. Yeah.
No.
So, okay. So you get turned over and now you're made available to get married. How long did it take before you actually got the call that you were getting married?
One thing I will go back to though is we went and saw Roland in that room. He turned to my sister and he's like, you want to marry me? And just the feeling that came over me, he was asking both of us, but more direct towards her. And just the feeling, it's hard to describe your feelings through all of that because you're not sure what's going on and it's supposed to be an honor or whatever.
Right.
But kind of a panicked feeling. I didn't know what to say. And my sister's like, well, you know, if it's what the Lord wants, you know.
That's a good answer, actually.
Yeah. So I was just happy for her to step in.
And so you didn't say anything?
No.
Okay.
I just kind of like, yeah, whatever. But I just went, had to go back to that because that was one of the moments where, I don't know, it's just a big moment of feeling something. Yeah. You weren't sure what you're feeling at the time.
I think that I talk a lot about intuition, and it's a power that's given to us, that it's our higher self that's guiding us. And I think those moments, no matter how much you're told that is the right thing and this and that, it's like inside,
Oh yeah.
there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And it really is. I mean, I just can't imagine being in your position, right? Where you're being told this man is basically God.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And he's, I don't know how old he was when you saw him at that point, 85 or probably close. I don't know.
I don't know how old was he when he passed.
Close to 90, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, he was probably in 80.
Yeah. And he's got all those wives, and you're just gonna be another
exactly.
another number.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that, I mean, look, the Disney fields, everybody. It's like the princess wants to be, swept off her feet by Prince Charming. You've got this old geriatric man that's like, hey, you want to come marry me and just be in the group?
No, exactly. That's what it was. And, I've heard stories and I'm just like, wow, dodged a bullet.
Yeah, man.
That'd be terrible.
Yeah, it really would. Okay.
But yeah, it took about a year after me and my sister got turned in before we got the call. Actually, I think it was 6 months for her.
Okay.
She got married. And then it was about a year for me. So I was at home without her in the home for about 6 months.
Okay.
And we did everything together growing up. So we were like the salt and pepper twins.
So that was a big thing. I mean, that was
Yeah.
probably tough, I would imagine.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Did she marry him?
No, thank goodness. Yeah, no.
Okay.
So that was a good thing.
Now, did she get married to a man who had multiple wives, or was she a first wife? Or?
No, she was a first wife, and she's still a first wife.
Okay.
So he never got another wife.
Okay. Are they still in it?
Yes.
Okay.
They're still in it.
Okay.
Hopefully not forever.
Okay. All right. So you 6 months after?
Yep.
Talk to me about what happened.
So, during that year, my mom built my wedding dress, and we went through all of that, and that was kind of exciting doing that. I'm just at home, and my dad taught junior high school, like literally 2 houses away. So, by the old candy shop there in the creek. But he walks home at 11 in the morning, and he never does that. Comes through the door and tells me that I am getting married at 3 o'clock that afternoon.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. To, Sam Nielsen.
Did you know who Sam was?
No, I hadn't. I didn't even know. Never heard of him. Never nothing. My friends came over, and a couple of them said that they had seen him before. They knew who he was.
Okay.
So I asked him a couple questions about him. I think basically I wanted to know what he looked like, so.
There's no Facebook back then.
No, there wasn't anything.
Can't look it up.
No internet.
Yeah.
I mean, there probably was, but we didn't have access to it.
Right.
And yeah, this was in the year 2000. So Sam actually called me that morning. So I talked to him on the phone for maybe 30 seconds. Him just asking me if I would marry him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Was that something that the church told him to do, or his dad?
It sounds more of his dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I mean, for those of you listening, so again, because we there's a group that's down in Colorado City. There's a group that was in Salt Lake at that time. I grew up in Salt Lake. I went to the Alta Academy, which was Warren Jeffs was the principal of, and it wasn't a big group. It was only like 300 students. It wasn't huge, but Sam, your husband, he his family went to that to Alta Academy as well. So I knew all his whole family really well. And what's funny is Sam was like quote unquote, one of the bad kids. What could be considered bad in that religion, I guess. He was kind of a rebel or whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, but you wouldn't guess it after we got married. He
cleaned it right up.
Pretended to. I mean,
interesting.
I mean, I'm just telling my story of how it was, that I'm not, trying to be
I hear you.
rough about anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hear little bits of stories here and there that you say, but people can be self-righteous.
Yeah.
Sure.
And, I mean, especially in that church.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think it has a lot to do with your family. I think it has a lot to do with your dad. There's like certain expectations, right? Like, so Sam's dad, Wendell, was, once Warren became the prophet, he was the second or first counselor, right? First counselor. So he was really high up in the church, very high up in the church. And so I think that there's this expectation for the children to like fall in line and like, wear a certain mask when it comes to how they present to the rest of the church. Yeah.
And even back when I married him, Wendell Nelson's name was high up, very respected.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so when I walked in to marry him, I had no idea what he looked like. For some reason, I thought he was short and bald. And I actually didn't even completely know if I was a first wife or if I was a plural wife. No. I think I was probably told at the time.
Okay.
But
this is a blur, I'm sure.
Yeah. You're in a blur. But I was married at Roland Jeff's home there in Hilldale.
And so when you saw him, I mean, like, talk to me a little bit about what's going through your mind.
I thought he was super handsome. Okay. He was good looking. Yeah. So I felt very...
full head of hair.
Lucky. Yeah. Full head of hair, dark. I'm like, sweet. Yeah.
I mean, I will say, to kind of set the understanding for those listening, like, I mean, I wouldn't say that in that religion there wasn't a lot of focus on looks. And what I mean by that is like a lot of guys were working all the time. There's no style, right? Like it's just very, and so, I think there's a large amount of people that kind of, there's a lot of, people just don't take care of themselves, like at all. There's men like that, especially. And so I can understand your worry of like, you don't know if it's going to be, you're going to hit the jackpot or you're going to,
exactly.
And so, and I think the bonus was, well, at least for one, he was not married, right?
No, he was not.
Yeah. So you were first wife. Yeah. And I think he's roughly around your age. Is that, or a little bit older?
7 years older.
7 years older.
So,
oh gosh.
So he was 24 and I was 17.
Okay. So not crazy.
Not compared to a lot of other things that went on.
It is crazy, but not crazy.
No, it was doable.
Okay. So, I mean, what happened?
We just went to Roland Jeff's home there, and we're supposed to be married at 3:00, and it got to be 3:30, around 4. And so I guess Sam was told that afternoon that he was getting married. So he actually, had to travel from here, Salt Lake, and change in a rest stop room.
Oh, wow.
On the way.
It's like a 4-hour drive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get down there.
Yeah.
All right.
So I just had some of my siblings. My older sister was there and some of my siblings. But we just waited in his front living room. As soon as Sam got there, we walked through a hallway and into a room, and there was Roland Jeffs and some of his wives, Warren. I don't know about any of Warren's wives there, but so it was basically my parents, his parents, and I don't even remember if my siblings came into the room. But we just stood there, and they have you do that marriage hand shake, whatever it's called. Yep. And he did the marriage, and of course it's for time and all eternity, unbreakable bond here. And then we left and went to my house to see my parents, and it was super awkward.
Oh, I can't even imagine the level of awkwardness.
It was very awkward, but I was very awed.
Okay.
I mean, not awed. I was very awestruck because I felt very, very lucky to be married to this man.
Okay.
You know, and he was handsome, and he is Wendell Nielsen's son. And I, look back and wish I didn't feel that way, because that sets the tone of me just submitting, me just wanting to be a good girl,
Yep. Yeah.
So, but that is how I felt at the time, and that in the clouds for about 3 months after that, before it come down. But yeah, we saw my parents for a while. Kind of sat there and stared at each other, and for a while, and then we left that night and came back up here to Salt Lake.
And then you lived here in Salt Lake, right?
Yeah, I lived here for a year, because at the end of 2000, no, it was a year and I think it was 2001 when everybody was told to move back down to Colorado City.
So you came up for a year, and then everybody had to go. So the church basically ordered everyone to move out of Salt Lake City and to Colorado City before the Olympics started.
And wasn't that in 21? I mean,
2001.
2001.
The Olympics were in 2002. Yep. So 2001, that was when that happened. That's when I left the church. Right before that.
Oh, yeah.
And then my whole family had to move down to
down there,
Colorado City. Yeah. So I'm curious to understand, like, what was it like? It's interesting. You said, you submitted, right? But I feel like that's kind of like you're conditioned almost.
Yeah.
From a young age. Like, again, you're taking care of your brother, right? You're helping your mother take care of your family. And so when you get married, I mean, what other role would you take? Right.
Right.
I mean, that's the role you would take. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but it sounds like I'm curious to understand, let's move ahead a little bit to maybe some of the more, times that stand out in your mind where you regret right? Like, talk to me a little bit about how the relationship progressed. And it's my understanding that he got more wives.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about that.
I feel like our relationship was great for a while. And given I was naive about everything, I didn't know anything. So it felt like it was a good relationship. He got another wife 5 years after we got married. So it wasn't a lot of time.
And you had children in that 5 years?
In that time, I had 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had 2 children in 5 years. So really pretty, I mean, that's just, husband, wife, kids for 5 years.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the dynamic that you were used to. And then another one came into the family.
Yes.
Talk to me about your feelings when that happened. Like, what was that like?
I tried to do the best. I mean, in my mind, I just wanted everything to work good. I wanted everything to flow good. And at the time, I was like excited that he was getting another wife. He called me on his way home after he had married her and told me he was bringing somebody home.
Oh, you didn't even know?
No.
You were not told beforehand?
No. And that was during the time that Warren was on the run, and he was doing marriages in secret or whatever.
Okay.
So they really weren't supposed to talk about it. So he didn't say anything over the phone, but made it to my understanding that he was bringing a wife home.
Okay. So for those listening, Warren basically got put on the FBI's most wanted list and was on the run. However, he was still operating the church, right? He was building the compound in Texas, and there's a bunch of documentaries about what he was doing. Yeah. But you were in the midst of that, and that's wild that you didn't get any warning whatsoever, other than just, hey, here we have another wife now.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's interesting to me that you say that you were excited because that sounds like the same thing when you were you know, 16 years old. And it's just that a lot of that conditioning, right? Of like, okay, this is good. Right. That's interesting. Okay. So talk to me a little bit what that transition was like of having that other person there.
At the time I tried to take the role on of not necessarily first wife, but I did everything I could to help things go smooth. And tried to be really understanding. So she ended up going to work with him, and I stayed home and watched the kids. I mean, that was normal for me because I was staying home to watch the kids anyway, you know. At the time I had, I think my oldest was 2 years, and then my youngest was just 1 year when she got married. But one of the turning points, I think, with how I felt was, and it's a little hard to talk about it because it's to do with kids, you know, you know how parents feel about their kids.
Sure.
But my youngest was a year old, and she came into the family, and we had a house of 3 bedrooms, right? So Sam had his own bedroom. The second wife has her own bedroom, and I have my own bedroom, but we have 2 kids.
So you have a bedroom with your kids.
Yeah. Well, so my oldest son stayed in a room with me, and then my 1-year-old daughter went to stay with the wife that just came into the family. So it's, you know, taking my baby.
Why would they do that? Why would he do that?
Yeah, he did that with my other
I mean, you would
too.
think they would do the older one.
Yeah. Right? My older one, he's a great kid, but he was a handful.
Okay.
So, you know, I'm the mom.
Right.
So it's my responsibility to this busy kid.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So a lot of dynamics, because you're dealing with, you're a young mother as it is, right? And you're dealing with newborn, you know, young children, and you're dealing with the dynamics of your husband and both of you being parents. And then now you've got this new person thrown in, but also they're also parenting. And now, was this individual younger? Or like, what was that?
She's 3 years younger than me.
Okay.
Yeah, so she was, gosh, I don't even, let's see. So she would have been probably, she might have been 18 when she got married.
All right.
Yeah.
So what comes to mind in those first, you know?
What comes to mind is my husband and I had a bedroom together, and then she came, and she actually moved in the bedroom with him. And I moved into a room, and then my kids had a room. And then I think that only lasted a couple of weeks, and then he decided he wanted a room, and we each had a room. Just the feeling of it being really hard to think of that being his room now and not our room. And he was even particular about it's his space. So that was tough. But I think the toughest thing is my baby sleeping somewhere else, you know, and she watching him a lot, and I mean her a lot. And then it was all right for a while, but it seemed like at one point that there was a switch with my husband, and there was, because he talks about it. Him trying to show affection toward both of us, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, it's super difficult, I would imagine.
So we were kind of open to being affectionate in front of each other, and then just one day he switched. And I look back now, and this wife is his favorite wife and was his favorite wife. And so, I mean, it started clear back then, you know. And I couldn't see it, of course, but I was just trying to be supportive and you know, and I did believe that in plural marriage, and it helps you get to the highest degree, you know, in celestial kingdom and all of that. But yeah, it was tough.
Was there, look, the only thing I have to base it off of is my dad, you know, had 2 wives, and they were sisters. And it was, I mean, it was just the worst fights as I was a child. Just so bad, to the point where then eventually they moved not my mom, but the other one down to Colorado City just to separate the two, because it was just constant war. I'm curious, like, what was that like? You know, I mean, did you guys keep it pretty civil, or was it, you know, was there outbursts, or, you know?
We kept it pretty civil. I think, at least in my mind, it was important for the kids to see unity.
Yeah.
So, you know, and he got another wife like 2 or 3 years after this wife. So he had 3 wives.
By the time before he got the third wife,
Yeah.
do you feel like you were in a rhythm with the second wife? Or was it?
I don't know. I mean, you know, it seemed like she was very dramatic and did certain things to get his attention. So the tables were definitely turning back then, you know, on being more centered towards her than me. And that's fine, you know, because you got to share your husband. And so I definitely tried. But as far as a rhythm, it just felt like a lot was being put on me to keep things together. And like,
did she have a child?
She did have a child, and she had really bad postpartum, I think that's what it's called, afterwards. And like, she got a blessing, and my husband put it on me that I need to make sure that things are different every day. He came to me and he's like, she's going through all of this. She's very depressed. You need to do something with her to make things exciting every day. So it was like all the weight put on me.
So instead of, like a normal marriage, right? That's on the spouse.
Yeah.
To kind of like work with the other one to kind of make things. But in this case, because there's multiple, he comes to you and basically kind of puts it on you. He's working and he's like, here, you do this.
Yeah.
And you kind of felt that pressure.
Oh yeah, for sure. It was a lot of weight, you know? And of course I felt like I needed to do it. I mean, you do what your priesthood head tells you to do.
Right.
So things kind of in rhythm, but I really lost myself.
Yeah.
In the whole process. Yeah. And, you know, I lost myself at the beginning too, because it's me going into a different world, just trying to build up his kingdom. And he and I are so different from each other. I mean, you couldn't ask for different, but it worked as long as it did, because I was just submissive and did what he needed me to do.
You had no voice, really.
No.
Hadn't developed it, didn't know how to, really.
No.
Yeah. Okay, so then you bring in this third.
Yeah.
Now I'm starting to see the situation you're in. Sounds like the second wife was kind of almost an additional child that you had to like help.
Yeah. I mean,
it was a challenge.
Yeah. Well, she definitely did her part as well. Okay. I mean, she definitely did stuff around the house and all of that. And that's, you know, not really a child, but I definitely felt some responsibility because my husband had wanted me to help with the situation. But yeah, and then she had a daughter, and then he married another lady that's actually my cousin, first cousin.
And you knew her?
Yeah.
Really well?
Yeah, we were neighbors.
Okay.
She's 3 years older than me.
Okay.
And we were neighbors. And so, yeah, I knew her growing up. And she had gone and got married and had 5 kids. Yeah. One of them passed away. But so she had 4 kids at the time that she married him.
So what happened? So did her husband, did he get excommunicated?
Yeah, he did. It's one of those that, you know, many men were sent away. And he was one of them.
Yeah. So to catch folks up, I mean, during this time that Warren was really raining fire over the church, he excommunicated many men, took their wives, and reassigned the wives and children to other men. And they all went along with it.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these men just went away and left their children, and they did it because they were there. I think there was some belief that they would maybe get them back, or they wanted to come back, or they wanted to repent, quote unquote. And so they went along with it. And these, again, like your family basically took on another woman and 4 children. So I can't imagine that was super easy.
No, it wasn't. But I think the biggest...
Did you guys get a bigger house at least?
Yeah. Well, we moved around a lot.
Okay.
We definitely moved around a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. The big Nielsen home there at the creek, we moved in and out of several times. But yeah. I think one of the things that really just upset me is I was kind of excited to have Tammy come into the family because she's awesome, So it kind of felt like I had someone else on my side, someone else that understood. And not saying that the second wife didn't, but she was favored.
Yeah.
And you don't see eye to eye if you're not on the same level,
Right.
But this third wife coming in, my husband made it a point on her wedding night to sleep with the second wife.
What? Why? Why did he do that?
He always made a point that he's the one in charge. So there was no, I didn't get him every third night or whatever. It was...
Whenever he decided.
Yeah. Whenever he decided. And I really think a lot of that stems from his dad. His dad had, I think, 8 wives when I came into the family. But yeah, he just definitely made it a point right off the bat. And it was not a good thing. I mean, imagine your wedding night and he's spending it. And he actually, the third wife, Tammy, and I actually slept in the same bed that night on her wedding night.
Oh my gosh.
And he was in the next room with her.
What'd she think about that?
She was not happy. She realized at that moment that she's like, this is how it's going to go.
Do you, and again, you don't have to answer this if you don't know or if you're not sure, but was she devastated by her husband being excommunicated?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because I'd imagine that would just be.
Yeah. Yeah. She really loved him.
Okay. So that was just, I mean, look, that's trauma on trauma, right?
Yeah.
Like one, you lose, your husband just ripped out for the kids too.
Yeah, exactly.
Husband's gone. The kids are like reeling what's going on. The woman's immediately married to someone else. And then she's told to love this person now. And the kids are just supposed to say like, okay, this is my leader now.
Yeah.
And for you, it's this person is inserted into your life with your children and your dynamics with your husband and the other wife. What a bunch of energy.
Oh, yeah.
Just like swirling in a house. I can't imagine what that's like. How long did that go on? Like what, like talk to me. Are there any moments that you think about that are like, I don't want to say wild, but just like kind of like that stand out for just, again, all that energy in the home?
We had, our struggles and our good times. But yeah, my cousin and I just kind of clicked and meshed together. And things slowly started getting worse because the church, was making all these rules, and, eventually you could only just shake hands, and then there was the United Order, and I was the only non-member of the family,
Okay, so hold on. So you have to explain that to me, because I've heard like things, back and forth, but talk to me a little bit about what happened in that shift from, people, like, again, you saying still being in the home, but like you're not a part of the church. Or explain to me what.
Oh yeah, as far as that part goes, yeah, so the church started doing this United Order thing, and everybody was rebaptized into the United Order. And I think that went on for 3 years or so. And then they said everybody's a non-member and they have to be rebaptized into the church. So now you have members and non-members.
So but was the baptism by calling?
Not the first one, but the second one, yes.
Oh, okay, hold on. So everyone had to get rebaptized.
Yeah.
And then they did it again.
Yes, they said everybody's a non-member and everybody has to come and have interviews with the bishop's office and make sure that you're in good standing, and then you can get baptized again.
And was Lyle Warren's brother the bishop at the time?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Warren at this point he's in jail when the third wife came in?
No.
Oh.
No, he married her.
Okay. So he was still around.
Yeah, he was still around.
All right. And then how long before, and then when did the United Order piece happen? How long after that? How long after the third wife came in?
It was probably 3 years.
So this whole 3 year, okay, so let's talk about this for a second. So the whole 3 years where, you've got now 10 plus kids probably. I mean, the more kids were had, or
yeah.
Okay. So you've got 10 plus kids in the home, three wives, Sam, there. And then you say there's like this 3 year period. I remember I wasn't a part of the church, but I was hearing like all sorts of stuff. Right. And what was it like? Because I understand that things were just constantly changing. And I know that there was this big piece of like who's in Texas.
Right.
And some people didn't even know about Texas.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that.
So Sam actually went to, we didn't know it was Texas at the time, but he spent a lot of time down there.
Okay.
I think it was about maybe a 2-year period before Warren got taken to prison. And I think he got taken in 2006. Uh-huh. So one of Sam's brothers was our caretaker during that time, but he was just gone. Like, we would write, of course.
Wait a minute. Sam was gone for 2 full years?
About, yeah.
You did not see him for 2 years?
Well, he came home maybe every 6 months.
All by himself? None of his wives or kids?
No, just him.
Really?
Yeah.
So, yeah, to kind of help everybody understand. So my understanding is that when they established this compound in Texas, there were certain members that were just invited to go.
Yeah.
And others didn't even know that the place, people were just disappearing, more or less, in the town. Mm-hmm. No one knew. It wasn't like some announcement that, hey, we have this other location. People were just more or less disappearing. And it's my understanding that those people that were going there were considered the people.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what they called them. The chosen ones. Yeah. Okay. So your husband went down there and none of his family.
No.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What was he doing? Just building stuff?
Yeah, it was the beginning of building the ranch there. Building what they were doing in Texas. But yeah, we didn't know.
Was there ever any explanation as to like, did he ever get an explanation as to why he couldn't bring any of his family?
You just have to be chosen and called. And at that time, they were still building everything. So I don't think there's really a place.
Did you ever go there?
No.
So, see, this is the thing I want to understand, because as much as, in the church, you believe that Warren's getting this divine, revelation. In reality, they have to have some sort of, because I know they had cameras all over the town and like all this stuff.
Yeah,
so in reality, there had to be some sort of scorekeeping system as to how they were determining, who was a part of this or not. I'm wondering if Sam ever had any like understanding of that, how they made those decisions. Because I'll tell you one thing, most of the people that had money were in that group.
Exactly.
So Wendell, he had that huge, I forget the name of it, Western Precision, which is a huge CNC manufacturing company. and he was always high in the church.
Yeah.
My dad used to golf with him. They'd take a private jet. And for obvious reasons, my father also, on the other hand, did not have a lot of money, and he was not in any inner circles whatsoever. And all the steeds, right? Like everybody that had like big money had kind of like, was kind of in those things. So that's why I wonder, like, if that was ever, I don't know, told to you.
I feel like a lot of that was based off of whatever Warren wanted.
Just how willing you were to just do whatever.
The money, and you're considered a resource to him. So, I mean, a lot of it's just bullshit.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of that of who was called and who wasn't was just whatever Warren wanted. But we all was like, it's a direct revelation from God,
right.
you know, but.
Well, and I also think it makes you feel less than.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like,
yeah.
From the outside in, it's like, who wants to be a part of that anyway? But when you're in it, you're like, I'm not good.
No, you're thinking that the whole time.
Yeah.
You're doing your best. You're going above and beyond and everything, and you're just never good enough.
So the United Order thing. So did you ever get baptized a second time?
No, I didn't.
So what was that? What was what was happening in the home?
That was interesting.
Kind of awkward.
So that was during the time. So we lived in a house, that older home, and then they built an addition. So there was a couple stairways. So we just put doors in those two stairways, and the rest of the family lived in the new part of the house, even though the kitchen was a dump. Mm-hmm. And I stayed in the old part with just me, and there was another lady that Sam was a caretaker over. She stayed there with she didn't stay there, but two of her kids stayed there. So it was just me and two of these other kids that felt kind of like my kids. Sam was a caretaker over them. And we stayed in that old part. And that was the time that I got Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer. So I was staying in there and didn't really have anybody to help take care of me. So at that time, John Wayman was the bishop. So I wrote him a letter and just was like, I can't do this, you know.
I'm curious because, you know, when it comes to doctors in the church and all that stuff, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
People, they're very like anti as much as possible.
Yeah.
How did you find out?
So I went to Hilldale like 3 separate times, and I had told him that there's just like this little teeny lump right here. It feels like a marble, but it's really sensitive to touch. So I had gone up there, and two of the doctors, Miriam Fisher, as she told me something like, this was my second visit talking to a doctor about it, and she's like, something about it being genetics, something. And then the first time I went, it was Lehigh Barlow, and he didn't think anything of it. But then the third time I saw Martha Barlow, and she, by that time, my arm was starting to hurt and my neck was starting to hurt. And she immediately called down to St. George and got me an appointment to go get it biopsied. So within a week, I had gone and got it biopsied. And yeah.
So when you found out, I mean, talk to me about your like process to kind of like, I mean, you need to tell Sam, right? Like,
yeah.
It just doesn't seem like it's going to be received very well.
It's just, I went down and I think I went down with Jennifer Roundy, the one that I said Sam was a caretaker over. I believe she's the one that took me down, or it was my mom. It might have been Mom. But, yeah, I went down there. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped a part. I went and got it biopsied. It took a month, and I heard nothing.
Oh, my gosh.
So they finally got back to me after a month and said they needed some tissue sample. So I went back down there, got a tissue sample, and yeah, it was cancerous. So the first initial visit to Dixie's Cancer Center, I think my mom took me down there. But yeah, when I walked in there, my grandma was there, and she actually was barely finishing with breast cancer.
Oh, wow.
She was doing her last treatment for breast cancer. But so I went down there, and they did a 3D scan and showed me where all the cancer is and everything. So, and Sam did not come down there at that time. And this was during the time that I was a non-member, okay? And so Sam and the rest of his family are members. So he kind of separated his thinking through this time, you know. So he wasn't a part of a lot of that. He kind of refused to be. But for years, I hadn't felt good. Mm-hmm. And when I would talk to him about it, he's like, blames it on jealousy or whatever. So I didn't really talk to him about how I was feeling.
He blamed your cancer on jealousy?
When I would talk to him about issues, he would just compare me to the second wife, how the second wife was so just happy to do whatever and sweet, and he wouldn't listen. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, why do you want to go talk to him if you don't listen?
You know, I think pulling from my own experience and my own growth, I didn't have the capacity to help other people mm-hmm. because I was so lost in my own problems, mm-hmm. right? And I see that so much with a lot of people I work with, where it's like they're zero capability for empathy because they're so wrapped up in their own trauma and turmoil, and they can't even admit that they have it. Mm-hmm. That instead of him coming to you and being like, one, you're his wife, you are the mother of his children, mm-hmm. and that should be a devastating thing for him. Mm-hmm. What does he do? Compartmentalize. That's what I would do. Mm-hmm. Compartmentalize. Throw it in the back. It'll go away. Mm-hmm. It's not my problem. It's not my concern. If it's causing me a problem, then it's your problem. Mm-hmm. Right. And I can't imagine how that felt for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. You know, yeah, it doesn't make it any better, but I agree.
No, it's not an excuse for the behavior.
No.
By any means.
No. But yeah, I came home, back to the creek after that appointment, and I think Jennifer had called him and told him that, yeah, I do have confirmed cancer. So, I get out of the car there, and he's outside on the grass, and he's like, so you have cancer, huh? And I just was like...
That's just horrible.
So, anyway, that whole process... Well, not to just skip over it, but he, I think he came with me one time for a chemo treatment. Actually, he didn't even come with me. He was in St. George, and he popped over there and sat for 10 minutes. Okay. And I did six rounds of chemo treatment. Oh, my gosh. So with, it's 12 rounds. Yeah, 12 rounds of chemo. But yeah, he came and sat for a total of 10 minutes. And then the only other time he was really involved was I had a really bad earache. And he took me to the ER. But that's through the whole process. I had to figure out my rides to go down there during this time. I didn't have my kids, really. One of the points there that really frustrated me was... So I told John Wayman, the bishop at that time, that I just can't do it by myself. Mm-hmm. So they moved me into the house, into one of the upper rooms, and it's the girls' area. So the girls and boys were separated. The boys were downstairs, the girls were upstairs, and that was very strict. But my son, my youngest, so I had 3 kids at the time. I mean, I still do, but my youngest was like 2 years old. And he would come in the room to see me. And twice, Sam like flips the door open, grabs this little boy's hand, jerks him out of the room, and he's like, boys shouldn't be in this area. I mean, I'm laying there dying, you know, that's what chemo does. It kills everything.
Yeah.
And it was just, I don't know. Maybe he's doing what you said, you know, just, I don't know. But it's just not okay.
It's not okay. It's 100% not okay.
And I didn't have anything to do with the rest of the family, but Tammy, the third wife, would make sure she brought me dinner. But I would have to get up and in the mornings it was pretty rough. So usually about 10 or 11 o'clock I could get up without passing out. I didn't actually ever pass out, but you know, you're going through chemo, then it's tough. But I would go and make me some breakfast, and then Tammy would make sure that I was brought dinner. But it was a tough time because the whole family, including my kids, were like downstairs doing their morning prayers or their morning classes, you know, because they did classes morning and night, reading out the scriptures and stuff. But it wasn't okay.
Yeah.
You know, nothing about that was okay.
Not at all. Well, I mean, spoiler alert, you got over the cancer.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, good for that.
Yeah.
Surprisingly enough, I mean, because I would think that, you know, when it comes to that kind of sickness, I think that your attitude and countenance overall is like a big factor.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because I think people give up.
Oh yeah.
Right. And I'm sure you wanted to many times.
Yeah, the last couple of treatments, it feels like it's definitely killing you because there's no more cancer to target. So it's targeting everything. So the last couple of treatments, I was like really like wondering if this ever happened again, if I would actually
choose to do it.
But, you know, then of course I would, because I want to be around for my kids.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. Wow.
And at that time also, so my brothers, a lot of the older ones, or some of the older ones had left the church. So, and I couldn't associate with them because they're apostates. So my mom would come over a few times, but she was a member. So here I am, a part of the church, but yet not, because I'm a non-member. So I was very alone to the whole thing. Jennifer Roundy was there more than anybody, and she took me to my appointments a lot, and her daughter did. And yeah, she was amazing through it. But the whole thing's super emotional, not just because you're going through cancer, but because you're going through it alone, pretty much.
Yeah. I think everything you've told me, there is many threads we could pull on that drive deep into trauma.
Yeah.
Lots. Talk to me a little bit about, how did you leave? What happened?
So the church started getting stricter about, around this time, it was saying that the men needed to move out of the house and not live in the house. And this was long after everything turned to just shaking hands, you know, with husband and wife. And then everybody was non-member, so nobody was married anymore.
So when your family, the rest of your family was a member, you weren't a member, then they did something where...
Well, then everybody became non-members again.
Again?
Yeah. And
so even Sam?
Yeah. And that's when I got to move back in. So I moved out of the house after my cancer stuff. And while I was recovering, I moved out and lived with a couple of my aunts and actually my little sister too. And a niece not a niece, but yeah, my niece. Anyway, I lived somewhere else for a while. And then after that, then everybody became non-members. And so I moved back into the house. But I moved back into the house so I could be, see my kids and be a part of their life. But we could only shake hands with our husband. So, and then I think the church just started having these ridiculous requirements. And
if it wasn't enough already.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And Sam just started not doing everything that they wanted him to do. You know, they wanted you to call a bishop's office every day and report in or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, we were living off the storehouse, and we were given like 2 pounds of meat for this 12 family. I think there's 15 at that point, people to live on for a week. And you're not getting the protein you need.
2 pounds of meat for a week for 15 people.
Yeah. I mean, it was probably more than that, but.
Is this because you were supposed to be giving all the money, any money you had to the church?
I don't know about that.
I had heard that.
Yeah.
But Sam was working fully for the church, or did he have a job?
No, he ran his own business. So,
Okay.
and he still does. And he spent years and years getting where he's at right now.
Okay.
But no, so he has a water softener company.
Okay.
That's his business. So he did that.
And he was doing that.
Yes.
Okay. And so, but living off the storehouse, was that, I guess what I'm asking is, was that by choice or because you didn't have the money to get your own food, or were you not supposed to?
You weren't supposed to get your own food.
Oh my gosh. So they were starving you to death.
Yeah. Yeah. You're living on.
Can you believe that? Think about that for a second. You become so indoctrinated that you starve yourself to death.
Mm-hmm.
And you believe that it's what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that sick?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is sick. I think that is just sick.
Yeah, we ate lots and lots of bread, lots of potatoes, and there are so many allergies and bad things that happen from living like that.
Oh, for sure.
All of me and all of my kids and some of the second wife's kids all became gluten intolerant. Oh my gosh. You know, so many allergies because you just don't do that. But just being, so Sam started going and buying steaks and salmon and barbecuing them for the family, and that was heaven. That was a lifesaver because we didn't get protein.
Yeah. I mean, man, I want to know what Warren was thinking. I want to know what he was like. What was the master plan? I want to know. Was it just to continually take away stuff so that people would just keep following and testing? I mean, the psychological games he was playing with people are just wild.
Yeah.
And it ruined so many people's lives.
And it's non-repairable.
Yeah. I mean, look,
It's not.
I know dozens of people that have killed themselves that are from the church.
Mm-hmm.
And I know lots of people that are suffering deep in addiction. Mm-hmm. And because you can tell me if this happened to you, but for me and my brothers, when we left, it's like you go from one extreme to the other. You go from not being able to do anything and you leave and you do everything. Drugs, alcohol, sex, you just go off the rails. And I think that for me, it led me to massive alcoholism that I literally was standing on the front lawn of my house ready to kill myself with a gun to my head because I was drinking so much. And this was 16 years after I left the church. So it was just like this locomotive of, destructive behavior because I had all this trauma inside me that I did not know I was trying to run from it. Mm-hmm. I was numbing, and I couldn't get away from it. And it wasn't until I got sober and I started working on myself and digging deep into that trauma and addressing it that I was able to actually free myself from it. And I feel so bad. This is the purpose of this, this podcast is the purpose of my book. It's a huge purpose in my life to share stories like this and help people, find some value in resilience and, hey, look, you went through all of that, but let's talk about really quickly, because we're almost out of time here, but let's talk about the back end side. Like you left the church and now let's talk about kind of that journey and where you are now.
I feel happy where I am at right now. And I do think a lot of it has to do with attitude. Mm-hmm. I feel like my family, my siblings are a huge part of helping me. I mean, I live with one of them right now. They've made sure I have a place to stay, and I just think a lot of it's attitude. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of hard work. I feel upset that I missed out on 20 years of my life. Yeah. Because like music culture and all of that, I just don't have it because I sung hymns,
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of it's pretty hard for a couple of years when you first leave.
Yeah.
But it does get better, and you get a routine. You get your own job, your own paycheck. It comes with its responsibilities, but it feels really good to be in control of your life and get to make your decisions. And you just begin to realize how unhealthy so many of those things were.
Yeah.
And it's not okay. And you do matter.
Yes. That's such a great statement. You do matter. That is, I know it seems small for some people, but it really is. Like you do. And I think that's why I wanted to have you on, right? Because I think that I believe that everyone has a story. Everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
But where we came from, there's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot that we went through. And for you, my goodness, I mean, there's so much that you've overcome, and I'm so happy that you are where you are. And I think that it is inspiring because I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't know that most people could get through some of the stuff that you've been through, to be really honest.
Yeah.
I think they'd give up. And so I think it's inspiring to know that people like you are out there that have been through so much, and now in this stage in your life, you're really just trying to ultimately put it back together and create a life for yourself that's fulfilling.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, no problem. Hey, look, I appreciate you coming on. I hope the best for you, and I think good things are ahead for you.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right. Thanks, Kandi.
Thank you.